Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, and good night, wherever you are, however you may be watching or listening. Welcome to the Double D podcast, and we've got breaking news here. This podcast is being recorded on the 24th of September, and I'm probably going to get it out tomorrow. I'll probably edit it tonight and get it out tomorrow, but we just got word that Nancy Pelosi, if you don't follow politics too much or you've been in a box of politics for the past couple of years, Nancy Pelosi is the Speaker of the House. And that particular person is the political party that has a majority of their party in the House or the Congress gets a leader, right? They elect a leader, and Nancy Pelosi is a Democrat. She is the one of the leaders of the House of Representatives, and the main leader. And the House, there's a very important, and we'll get to what the breaking news is, but the House has a very important power set forth by the Constitution. The House is the largest body of Congress. It is based on, the population of the different states. So the Congress, you get two representatives per state. So there's 100 members of the Senate, which is the smaller body of Congress, considered maybe the more powerful in many regards, but two elected officials per state on that. The House, on the other hand, is based on your population. So a larger populated state will have more representatives representing them. And one of the main powers of the House of Representatives, since it is more representative of the people of the United States, although in recent history it's very much a polarizing child's playground of he said, she said, I'm a Democrat, I'm a Republican, I don't like you, and maybe less about what the people actually want them to do. But, that's government. We put these folks in positions usually, it seems like, for life. We unfortunately take the consequences of that when we get these little children fights. But what came out today, in fact, most breaking news is just like reporting it just minutes ago before I hit this record button, although there were some sources reporting this earlier today. But Nancy Pelosi, the Democratic leader of the House, has started an impeachment inquiry against Donald Trump, the president of the United States. Now, a few things. I don't want to get into we'll get into the reasons for that, but I don't want to necessarily get into the nitty gritty. There have been multiple attempts to bring forth this inquiry in the past. People from both sides, both Democrat and Republican in the House have done the paperwork and stuff, but it never got to an inquiry because there wasn't enough evidence out there to really begin this investigation. So let's first talk about what is impeachment, what is the process of impeachment, and what is the history of impeachment in the United States. So first off, it is a power of the House of Representatives, and what it is if there is some sort of legal law or standing that a elected or a federal official has broken. So I say that because when we think of impeachment, because of recent history and specifically presidents, we automatically assume impeachment just means president. And that is not true. It's any federal official that breaks the law. The House of Representatives has the ability to start an inquiry of impeachment. And what that is an investigation. There's a group of folks in the House that will investigate the claims, just like you would investigate, just like a police officer or detective would investigate a normal criminal court. This is a group of people who will investigate the claims of a federal law being broken. The first time, of course, for President Trump that this came up was the Russian collusion, which was found through, even though we haven't seen the entire report yet, it was found that he himself was not guilty of collusion with Russians. Honestly, I will never say that I'm a fan of Donald Trump. I've never been a fan of Donald Trump before, during, or after in the process of election. No, I don't think he's a good businessman. I think he's egotistical. I think he's a narcissist. I think he is what is wrong with this country on so many levels. And the fact that he was elected to the highest position of power in this country is beyond me, but that's beside the point. But the first kind of talks about this was around the Russian collusion, and then with his tax returns, because again, in the Constitution, the president is supposed to show tax returns. He has not. He's released a little bit, which has kind of stemmed the bleeding on that. But I'm sure that'll come up now in this. But many members of his campaign were found guilty in that Russian investigation, but him himself was not, which when the whole Russia investigation started up, I had a feeling that, it wasn't going to come down to him because I don't know. I've listened to this man over many, many years, not just as he's been elected president. The man is smart enough to, I don't know. I don't want to denounce his intelligence as I've never met him before. But any person that has a business and a brand and they have successfully bankrupted their business 5 times, I just don't get it. I don't get it. So anyways, there's been multiple attempts to get this inquiry going, but it hasn't taken hold because of the evidence. Well, just recently, a whistleblower, and again, I'm not going to get into the nitty gritty too much here, but a whistleblower has presented information that Donald Trump was utilizing some of his presidential power on Ukraine in order to get them to launch investigations against former vice president and current presidential candidate on the Democratic Party, Joe Biden's son. So the whistleblower has reported, again, this is all speculation. Again, that's what the investigation is going to be there. But utilizing his power, such as things like potentially tariffs or other things that he has not necessarily direct control over, where things would be voting, but things he has power over that he can hold over the heads of other governments, maybe promising incentives or things like that. I would have to dive in more deeply here when I'll click on another article here. I've got things popped up here so I can kind of go through this. So we'll go through that in a little bit, but he was utilizing this presidential power, using his office and his power to basically coerce Ukraine, which is not an ally necessarily of the United States. We've had they're a Russian satellite state from back in the day, which obviously with the Russian collusion thing, that kind of raises red flags. But at the end of the day, he was accused of, with this whistleblower, dangling some things in front of Ukraine and saying, we'll do this if you investigate or spy on, or whatever words you want to use, Joe Biden's son. And again, that is a front runner to the Democratic ticket in his reelection campaign. And obviously, Joe Biden's a front runner. He was a former VP. And it really harkens back to the idea of the Russian collusion, utilizing the power of Russia to get an advantage over Hillary Clinton. Again, he was found, we haven't seen the whole report, but he was found innocent of that. There was nothing to bring any sort of impeachment or trial on the Russian side. But now on this, with this whistleblower, it appears that now that he is elected president, he is using or trying to use the power of his office to engage in what amounts to tampering with an election. Not necessarily directly altering votes, right? But if you can get dirt on someone, you can then utilize that dirt to win an election. It's politics. It's dirty. Anything and everything comes out. Why? Because of things. But utilizing the office of the presidency to go to a foreign government and do some of these back alley deals to attempt to stay in office is definitely against the law. It is definitely against the law. The integrity, especially with the Russian things where people were found guilty of working with Russia on behalf of the Trump campaign, just not him directly. In light of that, the fact that this whistleblower has came out and said, we have evidence, or I have evidence, here is evidence of the president utilizing his power to potentially get a gain in a re-election campaign. So therefore undermining the election system, the I put this in quotes because we're a republic, not a democracy, but that's beside the point. The democracy of this country, and that is against the law. So let's talk about impeachment. Okay, what is that? So the impeachment, there's a process, right? There's an inquiry to gain evidence, and then there's actually impeachment. Now, a lot of people, when they think impeachment, they believe that is the removal from office, and that is not true. Okay, that is not true. Impeachment just means formal charges have been brought against the federal person, and that there is a court proceeding that will be done, and if the federal official is found guilty, then they are removed from office. Impeachment just states that the person has legal charges against them, and now there is going to be a trial. So the history of impeachment in this particular country. So we're talking about not inquiries, we're talking about the federal official has been impeached, so gone to trial. There have been more than 60 accounts of this. However, less than a third of them have found the person guilty and removed from office. So most of these, a lot of people might be blown away by that number, right? Because you think of Clinton, right? You think of Clinton. That was 98. He wasn't removed from office. But he's one that people think about when they think about impeachment, and he wasn't removed from office. And people are like, well, what about these other particular people? Nixon. Well, no, he resigned. Okay, he was not impeached and removed. He resigned. But in general, most of the people who have been impeached in our history of our country have been judges. Okay. So 15 federal judges have actually been impeached by the House, right? Have been impeached by the House. There were two presidents. Obviously, we just mentioned Bill Clinton, and also Andrew Johnson in 1868 was impeached. A cabinet secretary, William Belknap, in 1876, and U.S. Senator William Blount of North Carolina in 1797. So we're talking as far as big figures, there hasn't been that many impeachments. Now, as far as the impeachment total, we're talking more than 60 in our country's history, which is not that many. But aside from people removed from office, very, very few have been removed from office. But there has been instances of judges, of a senator, and things like that were actually removed from office. Both presidents, Johnson and Clinton, neither of them were removed from office. Okay, both of them were acquitted and were not removed from the office. So, what is going on here? Okay, so what is going on as far as why is Nancy Pelosi raising these items? And it has to do, again, like I mentioned before, it has to do with the president utilizing his power to gain a political advantage and undermine the election. Now, of course, just moments after this happened, just like I said, just not too long ago, moments after this, of course, the president does what he always does and goes to Twitter. Okay. The first tweet that he made at 5:08 p.m. is, "It's such an important day at the United Nations." There's a whole complete other ridiculousness around the United Nations and his quote about the very brave girl who addressed the United Nations about climate change. And clearly he was not listening. You can check that out. Check out Greta. We might do a podcast on that next week on that, because that was what this week's podcast was going to be, is about Greta and climate change and the responses to her and the absolute hate and disgustingness out there that people took out on the 16-year-old girl. I would look that up, but we might do a podcast on that next week. But he says, such an important day at the United Nations, so much work and so much success, and the Democrats purposely had to ruin and demean it with more breaking news, witch hunt garbage, so bad for our country. And then just 9 minutes later, he tweets presidential harassment. So first off, before we even get into the whole impeachment piece, Mr. President, let me make this very clear. Okay, you are the president, and I will respect you for that. But there's no such thing as presidential harassment. Okay, just like when the federal court said that you could not block people on Twitter because the people elected you and therefore they have the right on any platform to criticize you in the way they see fit, so long as they're not breaking the law. When you were told by a federal court that people could say and whatever they wanted on Twitter, and I'm knocking things over, and you can't block them because you are the president. So take your licks when the people say lick. All right. This is an elected representative, even though there are many Democrats who don't like her. The Democrats have put these people, the people of the United States, both Democrat and Republican, have elected these House members, and they have chosen to impeach you based on your actions. It is not presidential harassment. It is in the Constitution, which clearly you have a hard time understanding. Okay? If you're upset about a witch hunt, you may have want to keep your campaign in check when there were Russian collusion and those people were now in jail because of it. You may want to present your tax returns like the Constitution and law states you have to. And maybe that witch hunt would have been done. But and just like in baseball, you can swing for the fences, but if you're not that good at it, you're probably going to strike out. And though we don't know what's going to come of this, we don't know what evidence is going to be coming. We don't know what is necessarily going to be brought up. We don't necessarily know if this will actually go to an impeachment with the trial. We don't know if, he'll be removed from office. But the fact that he is acting like a child and saying presidential harassment tells you everything you need to know about this man and his understanding of the office that he holds. This office is one of the most criticized offices in the entire world and has been for a very long time. If you can't take the heat, you shouldn't have entered the kitchen. Okay, so let's dive into maybe just a little bit about what this whole ordeal is. So, announced on Tuesday that the House will open an official impeachment inquiry. That means, again, gathering evidence to see if a full impeachment trial needs to be conducted. And called the president's conduct regarding the Ukraine phone call a violation of law. Pelosi asked the 6 House committee chairs to continue their own investigations under the umbrella of the impeachment inquiry and to send their cases to the House Judiciary Committee, which is a bipartisan group that will look at this and determine if there's actual grounds for impeachment. So again, this is just an inquiry for anyone out there who does support this president and does back him. This does not mean the president is on trial. This does not mean the president is removing from office. This is quite simply a House leader asking the House Judiciary Committee and committee chairs to do their investigation under the impeachment inquiry, package it all up, and send it to the Judiciary Committee and decide whether they can then send articles of impeachment to the full House, which would then then the whole House would then vote if they want to, how they proceed it, and then they can, decide if the president indeed is impeached, which means again a trial, or if he's, removed from office. We've never had a president removed from office. We've had them impeached, just not removed from office. So again, this is what the phone call thing, this Ukraine thing is about, right? A whistleblower said that Trump allegedly, this is from a whistleblower, called the Ukrainian president, I won't even try to pronounce his name, to pressure him to investigate former Vice President Joe Biden and the 2020 Democratic presidential candidate's son, Hunter Biden, just days after withholding millions in military aid to Ukraine. So he's using military aid, right? He is the commander in chief. He can determine where military aid, military troops, military stuff is dispersed around the world. He withheld this military aid from Ukraine and said, hey, you want it? Then do this for me. And that's illegal, utilizing the office of the president in that way. Now, if he's utilizing that power, that aid to benefit the country, right? So that means if he wants to withhold military aid and say, Ukraine, let's say this was Iran or a company or North Korea. If he wanted to withhold that aid and say, I will give you this if you stop producing weapons of mass destruction. He can do that, right? It's beneficial to the country. But he cannot withhold things using his power of the military. He cannot withhold stuff to gain a personal or try to gain a personal advantage in an election which undermines the democracy of this country. Trump did confirm at the United Nations earlier today, so Tuesday, the 24th, that he did in fact withhold aid of nearly $400 million to urge the president of Ukraine to probe into Biden's family. But he denied that he threatened to withhold U.S. military aid to the country if Ukraine did not investigate Biden. So he admitted openly, verbally, to reporters that he did withhold $400 million of aid to Ukraine to probe into Biden's family. However, he said he did not threaten them, and he did not say he would continue to withhold if they did not. Really? Bro, you withheld aid, told them why. I want you to do this for me, and then I will give you something. You don't have to complete the sentence for us to know what the completed sentence is. Okay? This is like Wheel of Fortune. You gave us the first part. We spun the wheel, and we solved the puzzle. Okay? That's what we did. That's what the smart, intelligent American population did. You gave us the first part. We solved the puzzle. Okay? You didn't have to solve the puzzle. There is a small percentage, in fact, I think it's a larger than a small percentage of people in this country who are actually halfway intelligent and understand what you're doing. Okay? There's the other percentage of people, the majority, unfortunately, of people who elected you. And I won't say they're all complete idiots, but most of them are. Most of them are. Now, before anyone starts posting in comments or adding me on Twitter, I did not vote for Trump and I did not vote for Clinton. So before any of you come out and start poking fingers and saying that, oh, you don't like Trump, you supported dirty Hillary, whatever. I did not like Hillary. I've never liked Hillary Clinton. I did not support her. I did not promote her, and I did not vote for her. Nor did I vote for Trump. I did vote for a presidential candidate. I will not say which one, but I did vote for a presidential candidate on the Ohio ballot, and it wasn't one of those. So before you start accusing me of a Hillary Clinton supporter, I was never once a Hillary Clinton supporter, and I continue to not be a Hillary Clinton supporter. Nor was I Trump supporter. According to the Washington Post, when asked about impeachment earlier on Tuesday before Pelosi's announcement, Trump said, "They say it's a positive for me. How can you do this and you haven't even seen the phone call?" Okay, so first off, you don't see a phone call. Well, I guess you can read it if they've the thing, but anyways, that's beside the point. He also said that Congress has never seen the transcript of the phone call. Yes, Mr. President, understand the Constitution, which throughout your entire campaign and presidency, you seem to fail to understand that document. Impeachment does not mean you're guilty. Impeachment means we found some shit and we would like to investigate it. And if it's good enough, or if it's bad enough, in most terms, we would like to bring you in and have a trial. Clearly, he hasn't learned from his good buddy, Bill Clinton, because that's what happened to Bill. They decided that Bill, in his actions and his lies, was impeached. And he was brought in, he was questioned, and it was a trial, and he was acquitted. So, Mr. President, learn what impeachment means. Yes, they probably haven't looked at the transcript of the phone call, but that's what impeachment is, and the inquiry brings that stuff to light. Learn your Constitution before you flap your gums. So, and I'm sure this is, I'm sure if I pulled up Twitter right now, or I pulled up, I've been off Facebook for over a month now. If I pulled up those social media pages, I'm sure I will see a whole bunch of just garbo of people on both sides slinging just massive amounts of guerrilla shit at each other. And it's ridiculous. Okay, it's ridiculous. This country has never been more divided and in a worse position in a long time. We have a man leading this country who's clearly clueless of its basic functions as a country. A man who ran and won somehow the religious vote, but screwed up more Bible verses than I can even... I've read the Bible and knew he was wrong without even having to look it up. And I'm an atheist. And then between all the lies and we are going in a bad direction in this country. And it's not just Trump's fault. It's not just the Republicans' fault. It is the Democrats' fault as well. We are dividing. We are not unifying. And this country needs to come together. We need to come together and understand that I may be in general leaning liberal in most everything. There are some things that I lean conservative. I've voted on both sides of the aisle and upways and downways. I've voted all over the place because I vote for what I feel is best for the country. The last presidential election was not good for the country in any way, shape, or form. And we saw it then. We saw it soon after he was elected. We've seen it continually through the past couple years. And here we go again. We're seeing another instance where potentially, again, facts have to come out. The trial and understanding has to happen. And we'll see on the other side what actually happens. But the fact that this is even in question, the fact that this even could have happened, not to mention he admitted it, is a huge problem. And it shows that the current man that leads this country does not understand and respect the Constitution, the people he governs, or the democracy that he represents. He said throughout the day today that he will release an unredacted transcript of his call to the president tomorrow. How do we know it's unredacted? Just saying. Tomorrow, though. It'll happen tomorrow. He's got to get his McDonald's in and watch his 5 TVs that he's got in his bedroom. The transcript, however, for the Democrats in the House is not enough. They're demanding the director of the National Intelligence, of National Intelligence, Joseph McGuire, to release the whistleblower's complaint urgently. Well, the director of National Intelligence reports to the president, so I would assume that unless there's a court order or someone who is not a puppet string of the president, I don't think we're going to get that. But Congress, the House, has the ability to do that. So a lot of folks are probably at this point in this episode are probably sitting here thinking, well, what did he do wrong? I've said that it's against the law, right? I've said it's against the law to undermine the democracy and things like that. It's not treason, right? It's not treason. He's not like the Russian thing. That would be treason. He's working with another government, right? He is currently president. He's using the power of the president. So I don't think treason is something that we would look at here. But what it would be considered is bribery, right? It's a type of bribery. He's withholding something that this country is expecting, and then utilizing that to basically buy or bribe that country into doing something for him, which in this case would be investigating the former vice president and potentially his 2020 opponent in the presidential race, Joe Biden's son. Joe Biden being the potential opponent, his son being, his son. Currently, right now, as of this article posting, which I'm not showing a timestamp, 6:44. So about an hour and 15 minutes ago, 172 members of the House of Representatives have joined in this want for the impeachment inquiry. So just to give you an idea, representatives, just pulling it up real quick. The House of Representatives seats 435 voting members. 218 for the majority. 435 members. The Democrats have the majority in the House. So if this were to come to a full-blown trial, there are obviously more Democrats in the trial hearing than there would be Republicans. So the Democrats would have the power in this case. But again, it's like a court trial, right? There's evidence and all that and that fun stuff. So as of right now, so let's pull up our handy dandy dorculator here. So as of about an hour ago, there are 172 members, so 172 divided by, what did I say, 435? 435. So we're looking at about 40% of the House currently are wanting this inquiry, which is a substantial number, right? Substantial number. Now, from what I've read so far, and again, like I said, this is breaking stuff. From what I've seen so far, they haven't stated if it's a bipartisan push. I would assume at this point it's not. I would assume at this point it's a very Democratic / independent push. I would assume at this point, until more stuff comes out into the House Judiciary Committee, and then maybe Republicans would jump on board, a couple of them, because there has been a couple Republicans in the House that have been outspokenly against Trump. So there's definitely people of his party that would lean towards the inquiry of impeachment and potentially a full impeachment trial if there's enough evidence. But 172, so we're looking at about 40% of the House currently are requesting the impeachment, the full impeachment inquiry and proceedings. So going into that trial. So another thing to also note in this, and this is just something, I'm not a fan of Nancy Pelosi. I've never been a fan of Nancy Pelosi throughout her entire tenure in Congress. But one thing that Nancy Pelosi has always been is she has been a strong opponent of impeachment. She's an opponent of impeachment throughout her history. She is an advocate for long committee investigations. So she wants a thorough and strong investigation, and she's very much against quick snap impeachments, right? Which is why, again, she's asking for an inquiry, which is where the House Judiciary Committee actually look at this evidence to see things. Now, one piece of really interesting information is the House Intelligence Committee, different than the Judiciary Committee, but the House Intelligence Committee is also obviously involved trying to get the intelligence director to hand over that. And also a very interesting piece here is the Republicans control the Senate, which is the other body, which is, again, 2 elected officials per state, has unanimously, right? Unanimously means completely. So we're talking a Republican controlled by a decent margin Senate has unanimously passed a resolution today that Donald Trump must release the complaint from the whistleblower. He must release this information, right? So that is a Republican-controlled House has demanded the president release this information. Again, he said he will release the phone call transcripts tomorrow, but that's a very interesting point here because we're at 40% roughly of the House members. I don't know a breakdown of GOP versus Democrat. I don't know that breakdown. But 40% of the House want to move towards the impeachment inquiry or full proceedings, and all of the Senate is demanding Trump to release this information. That doesn't look very good for the president, just saying. If his own party, who in general the Senate has been relatively yes master to Donald Trump throughout his entire presidency so far, unanimously are demanding this information. Another interesting point, and again, I have a lot of issues with some of these freshmen or new lawmakers in the Senate. I have an issue with many of them. I think some of them, they may have platforms or stances that I agree with, but the fact that they're approaching it the same way Donald Trump approached his campaign and presidency, I do not like them. But many of the reports are that many of these new freshman lawmakers who are from districts that Trump won in 2016 are in that 40% of House members requesting and demanding this impeachment proceeding. So areas that Trump won, elected officials who are demanding this. So that should say something. Now, if things don't get worse. Now, you can check out if you want to youtube.com. Some of you are on YouTube, others are listening on podcast format. I got a letter a few months ago, and there's an interesting video that I did with this letter from Donald Trump. According to it was directly from Donald Trump. I actually have one from his wife laying on my table. I've not done a video on that yet. But according to the letter, it was directly from Donald Trump. It was a really, really funny video. I strongly suggest you check it out. It's quite entertaining. But the man has no chill. The man has no chill. Moments after this came out, Donald Trump's re-election team announced a fundraiser for his 2020 election. And let me just read you the tweet from his campaign manager. Trump fundraising appeal. I need you on my impeachment defense team. Text messages were also sent. President Trump, Nancy Pelosi just called for impeachment. Witch hunt. I need you on my impeachment defense team. All gifts are matched ×2 for the next 1 hour. Donate now with a link. No chill. No chill. But honestly, that's kind of what I would expect. In all honesty, that is something that I would expect from this man. Bankrupted his business 5 times. Doesn't understand the office that he sits in. Is not doing anything over his time here except making things worse. Not only socially, but politically dividing us more and more and more. And again, Democrats are not innocent of this. I will not ever call them innocent of this. But you hold the power. You are in the seat of power, and you should be working more towards bringing people together and focusing on important things than what you're doing. We have a lot of issues in this country. Excuse me. We have a lot of pain and suffering in this country. And you're too busy playing on Twitter to even try to bring us together and focus on it. So there you have it. There you have it. 40% of the House are pushing for an impeachment inquiry, which could lead to the impeachment of the president, which again, our tidbit and nugget of fact today is that impeachment is bringing the federal official to trial if found guilty, removed from office. No sitting president has been impeached and removed from office. There have been 2 presidents impeached, neither removed from office. In fact, the folks who most have been removed from office due to impeachment have been judges, and there has been a senator across the years of our country. But Donald Trump taking to Twitter like a baby screaming on a playground, not a good look for him. Not a good look for him, especially when his side of the Senate, completely in control of his political party, have unanimously demanded that he turn over the complaint from the whistleblower, information about it, and the phone recordings, transcripts, whatever you have, immediately. Not looking good. Not looking good. Also, if you want a good laugh, If you want a good laugh and you have Netflix, check out Jeff Dunham's latest Netflix special. If you're out there listening and you are if you enjoy politics, if you like laughing at the stupidity of politics, I strongly suggest you watch it. He brings out a new puppet. I'm not sure I really liked the new puppet, but it was different. But check that out. It just hit today. But guys, thank you very much for listening. I appreciate it. If you're watching on YouTube, please consider hitting that like button. Hitting that subscribe button would be awesome, but just you guys watching is great. If you're listening on any of the podcasting software, please do consider subscribing to the podcast to catch each week's episode. If you have ideas of things you would like me to talk about, anything out there, please leave it in the comments. If you're unable to leave it in the comments, please do tweet at me at Davram TV on Twitter. And if you have the ability to rate the podcast, I strive to be a 5-star podcast. I know I have a long way to go, but we're trying to get there. So please do leave me a rating on the podcast, and I hope it's 5 stars. But guys, take care of yourselves and each other. If you're not into politics, you should at least be knowledgeable enough that you understand the direction your country is going to and vote intelligently. Even if you don't follow what is going on currently with the potential soon impeachment of the president, we don't know. This could be history in the making. But you should also understand what impeachment means, what impeachment inquiry means, what impeachment proceedings are, because there's a lot of misinformation out there. Be smart. Understand what you're talking about. Understand. Be educated. Guys, take care of yourselves and each other. We'll see you next time on the Double D.